Hello everyone, welcome to another coaching session, if you will. Hopefully everyone's been having a decent start of weekend. And as always, I'll leave you guys with a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes even. You guys can always pause the video, /live stream obviously. But this puzzle seems to be tricky. There seems to be not only one pin, skewer, but even a pin going along these the same rank essentially. And before I go way too much into detail, I'm gonna just make sure everything is working in the technical level. But as I said, have a think. Make sure everything is working in the technical level. But as I said, okay. Everything seems to be working. Oh, wait a second, sorry. Oh, well. Okay. There we go, finally. Okay. So, sorry about that. Let's go into the puzzle. Now, obviously we're being checked by the rook on a2, and you quickly realize that we don't have many options. We can only move the king or block. Let's start with blocking because it seems like the only move out of all of those that has a little bit more independent value, because the other one was simply moving the king. Rook c2, we can quickly reject, we can quickly eliminate this and essentially say this is not good for us. After takes, very forcing. And then this is what I was talking about. Obviously there's a knight in the middle between the two queens, but black can do a desperado. You have to constantly calculate ways in which you can get rid of a piece that is blocking two pieces, especially if they're as powerful as a queen, to see if you can, well, unleash an attack on such a powerful piece. So for instance, rook c2, rook takes c2, king takes c2. Black has both knight e1 or knight e3. Let's stick to knight e1 because it's the simpler one. And knight e1 check. White can't take because it's a pin, which means that white has to move the king, which means that we're going to lose the queen. So very, very cool idea by black. Rook c2 does not work for that reason. So now we're left with moving the king. Moving the king to the first rank seems to be running into the same problem. Both king d1 and king c1, it doesn't really matter. Black has queen h1 check, and it's essentially a ladder mate. There's only one way for white to stop that ladder mate from happening. I mean, prolonging it for one move, I should say. And that is simply blocking it with the queen, but that queen is going to get lost whichever square it blocks to. So once again, like, we're using the method of elimination so far. And just like that, we are left with only two moves. So from going into this overwhelming, chaotic position of, I don't know what to do, rook c2, king c1, king d1, what's the difference? Well, rook c2 doesn't work because we lose the queen. King c1, king d1 runs into ladder mate. So now we have king d3 or king c3. What is the difference? Well, let's find out. King d3. Let's see. King d3. So king d3. Quickly we realize that after both king c3 or king d3, if black takes on f2, we have rook h7 check, which is very importantly a resource we have that essentially saves the game. If it wasn't because of that resource, we would be completely lost because we're losing the queen. and the game. So I'm only wondering, what is the difference between those two moves? Because yeah, rook takes f2 is not the reason why. Like if you knew that black is going to take on f2 regardless of where you put the king, I think you're happy. Rook takes f2, rook h7, king g6 or king g4. I think king g4 probably better, because king g6 after rook takes h2, there's some rook h6 mate ideas. But now you realize it. Wow. So take a look at this. King d3 seems to be wrong because the king is at the disposal of a check by that knight. So this is very resourceful by black. King d3 fails to rook takes f2, rook h7. And after king g6, the king is escaping to g6 because it's closer to stopping the pawn from promoting. So it is important to play king g6. And I did say that it was getting into some mating net after rook takes h2. And I asked myself, well, black needs something very forcing, and that's the exact position I'm visualizing here. And I repeat for you guys to visualize this from home. King d3, rook takes f2, rook h7 check, only move, king g6, rook takes h2, and black needs something very forcing to stop knight h6. And not only that, but they can win with the same tactic actually that we were calculating that won the queen previously, but this time it wins the rook and wins the game. And that is 91 check. We have to move the king, we lose the rook, and even if we push the pawn, there's king f7 at the end. So very nifty, very, very cool idea. So by method of elimination purely, we reached the winning move, which is king c3. And the difference now is that after rook takes f2, rook h7, king g6, rook takes h2, 91 is no longer check, which means that we can play rook h6 mate, or even e7, a variety of options. Now black plays queen h3, which we didn't calculate, but we assume is fine. There are several ways I can see this working for white. Knight g3 is the very first move that I calculate. David, why are you calculating the weird knight g3 on top of or over king b4 and king c4, which look more natural? Well, yeah, king b4 and king c4 may look more natural, but to me, actually, it's not the case. Knight g3 has to be the very first move that I have to calculate because it's the most forcing move. King b4 and king c4 are not as forcing as a check. Knight g3 check. Now, knight g3, queen takes g3. Let's start with that one because there's both f takes g3 and queen takes h3. Sorry, f takes g3, queen takes g3, I should say. So knight g3 check, queen takes g3, queen takes g3, f takes g3. I have e7. And I'm promoting that pawn. There's no one that can stop that guy. And we should be winning. And against f takes g3, I suspect we have rook h7, king g4, and queen f5 mate. So knight g3 should work. King g4 we didn't even calculate. So we are failing. Let's not lie to ourselves. We should have seen that. Wow, this one is pretty tough. Goodness gracious. I mean, if you saw this far, congratulations. This is not easy at all. What on earth do we do here? Queen f3, king takes f3. That doesn't work. Queen e2, rook takes e2. Wait a second. Obviously, well, we can take the rook now. We can take the rook now, and if queen takes g3, now the king comes to b4, and sure, that king is a little bit exposed, but I think it's finding a reasonably safe square on b4. I think the queen and the rook would be protecting that king enough. So I guess this, I mean, I don't see anything else. Yeah, queen takes e2, and if queen takes g3, what does the engine think? King b4? King b4 fails to queen e1, so king b2. Goodness gracious, I could have got it wrong there. King b2, wow, that's a very... It looks like black can check more if the king is on b2 than on b4. Because, look at this, I mean, queen f2. But it turns out king a3. And then you can block with the queen. Very complicated stuff. Obviously, if we wanted to properly calculate such a thing in a real game, you would have had to manage your time very well. So you have, 20 minutes to clear all of those variations off. But yeah. Hello, Roger. How are you? That was a tough one, but let's go with the arena. We're arriving super late. But maybe we can speed up. Maybe we can berserk once in a while, just to get to the very top and get good games. It's taking 1,000 years to pair us up with someone. There we go. Pressure. It worked. We're gonna berserk. They're gonna berserk back. We're gonna exercise our 1d6 repertoire with black. They go for c4 and we're gonna go for e5. White chooses not to go into the endgame with d5. I used to play f5 here, but eventually I learned that we should not play f5 because there's this very annoying move e4. And I'm not ready to keep the tension. So I'm gonna go for this setup. It's a King's Indian defense essentially. And I'm gonna exchange the dark squared bishop, sorry. I'm gonna exchange the dark squared bishop, the very important bishop. I want to leave white's light squared bishop alive, because I think it's not as good as the dark squared bishop one. So I'm gonna go h5, they go h4, and let's see, where should we put this knight on on g8? Should we put it on f6 or on e7? It's a very good question. Not sure what the answer is to that. I'm gonna put it on f6 because I think it very often reroutes to c5. And this one you're gonna say, well, David, this one is kind of like left with an existential crisis, as they say. But it comes to b4 sometimes. So don't worry about him. He's fine. I'm gonna castle short side, putting my king in safety, keeping an eye on the clock as well. We berserked. We have half of the time that we usually would start with. And if you add that up with the simple fact that we are usually struggling in time, then things are not looking good. But now they are looking pretty good. So many things have happened. As soon as white castles short side, this setup with a pawn on h4 and a knight on g3 usually screams, don't do it. And if you can jump to the g4 square, which I've made sure to reinforce with my pawn on h5 and with my bishop on c8, you should at least calculate that move. And in this case, it turns out that I gain a tempo on the queen. If they simply move the queen, they drop the pawn. But even if they attack my bishop, I can take the pawn because now this knight is undefended. So they took. I have to take the knight. If I simply take the pawn, I just lost the bishop for nothing. And now I'm realizing that maybe it's not as easy as I thought. My original idea was that after GH, I was, without calculating much, already a dangerous thing to do, I was pretty happy because I thought I could open the H file for myself. And maybe it is the case. I'm going to play King G7. I wasn't sure if I should have played Queen E3, thrown in that check. I chose ultimately not to. I think King G7 directly to go Rook H8 is probably good enough. And they break the tension on G6. I'm going to take back with the F pawn to open up the F file. I'm creating a threat. I'm creating the threat of taking on F3 because after Queen takes F3, there's Queen takes C1. And obviously white can't take with the pawn. It's pinned. So they take. Good sign. Whenever your opponent breaks the tension, you should be somewhat happy. And I think we have a very dangerous attack Queen e1, very good defensive move. I'm gonna go knight c5, threatening knight d3. Queen e1 is designed to stop queen e3. They go there, but now I'm gonna jump with knight d3 and knight f4. Well, it depends where white goes, actually. If they somehow undefend the e3 square with queen d1, bad news. And they go for this, but now I get queen g3, defending the knight. I don't want to trade queens, I think I have an attack. And if you're attacking, obviously you would like to keep the queens on the board. Now I have a very nasty threat here. And white's pieces seem to be tied up all of a sudden. Yeah, knight d1, I don't think that stops the threat. Now let's focus here. We have several ways, and we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's enough, so let's think. We've made moves pretty quickly to get to this position. Now the idea that I had was knight e1, and that's threatening two things. A little bit more straightforwardly is the rook, but at the same time it's knight f3 check. And once again, this is pinned, so that would be winning the queen. So even if white plays something like rook c3, knight f3, rook takes f3, there's rook takes f3. Oh, sorry. And we're winning there because we're up the exchange. Now, I want more. Rook h8, I want queen h2, king f1, and rook f8, which would be winning. I mean, it looks horrible. But I think there's there's knight e3. And after knight e3, there's nothing. Now knight f4, maybe knight f4? Threatening knight h3 and queen rook f1. Knight f4 looks good. Knight f4 looks pretty good, actually. Threatening knight h3. I don't see a way to stop that. The back rank is all of a sudden pretty weak. So knight e1 would have been winning, but I think knight f4 is more winning. Knight h3 is a super threat. This is essentially following the principle of whenever you find a good move, find a better one. By the way, king h1, probably we can just do check, check, check and pick up tons of material at least. And there's also knight h3, so we're spoiled for choice. How on earth did I not see that? Knight h3, king h1, rook f1 is simply blundering the rook. What a genius I am. Okay, we can somehow win this, right? Check. There's also a rook here, by the way. Isn't this just completely winning? I think it is. There we go. What are we threatening? Knight f2, followed by rook h1. Now we do have less than a minute now. So we should extinguish any hope ASAP. But yeah, I think probably the engine is going to say g takes h3, rook takes h3, queen h2, takes. There we go. Thanks for the game, Team Cheeser. Just to show that last bit, we're going to do a quick analysis here. G takes h3, rook takes h3, queen h2. Unfortunately, maybe if white could keep the knight somehow, if the white knight was defended, maybe it was if it was in an outpost already, maybe white could put a little bit of resistance, but the knight is immediately falling. Now let's take a look at the opening. How did that go? I forgot to include the engine. Now bishop h6, yeah, this is all typical. h5, knight f6 is okay, but it's not the best. For some reason my leech has kind of reset. There we go. So bishop d7 would have been better. And after a3, g5. What? That's insane. Such an anti-positional move. This looks very nice. It's very solid. Why would you weaken your structure all of a sudden? I mean, g takes h4 is the threat. Wow. Okay, this is... I would never do that. I would always keep things controlled. And yeah, castle short side is a mistake. They should have played b3, queen d2, rook b1, all of these type of positions. Like, keep the rook on h1. But castling short side allows not knight g4, but knight h7. This is what I should have played. Although knight g4 is also winning for black. Knight h7 is the perfectionist approach. This is the hyper accurate move. The knight g4 is the human way. There's minus 1.5. Plus a little bit more, actually, the more it thinks. And bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4, f3. Queen h4 is once again the human way. I mean, bishop d7 would have... There would have been nothing white could have done about the pawn either way. So once again, this would have been the hyper accurate way. But this is also good. Although I should have tucked in that queen e3 move, because it forces rook f2 to some extent. And look at this. All of a sudden the engine says, look, I don't want king g7 anymore. This is not such a big advantage. I go knight c5, threatening knight d3. And, you know, I'm thinking about this, and how on earth do you stop this? Queen e1 doesn't really stop anything. You're still losing the exchange. So you have to play queen d2, to which you're simply winning a pawn. Although it's a little bit... but you have to find f5. This is an important move. Okay, it wasn't that easy. Humanly, I prefer king g7. King g7 seems a little bit more straightforward. And yeah, after h takes g6, we were pretty happy. White could have put more resistance with the only way to put resistance, queen c2. This is the only move the engine claims is not as losing as the others. So queen c2. Why is this, David? Excellent question. I have no idea. I'm joking. Let's find out. Queen h5. Okay, what about what's different between queen e2 and... Oh, okay, sorry about this. This is dropping the rook. Okay, what's the threat of queen c2? Rook f c1. So simply, the simple fact that the rook is coming into the game. Remember, this rook on c1 actually turned out to be a pretty decisive factor. And we're gonna take a look at that actually right now. But then, yeah, queen c2, bringing the rook quickly. That's why queen c2 is the best. That's the only way you can move the queen in order to connect rooks without losing the rook on c1. It's as tactical as that. But yeah, once we got... Look at this. My rook is better than white's rook, and my queen. And not only that, I think it's mainly that the diagonal... I think both of our kings are exposed, but my queen is already very well placed for e3 checks. The diagonal is weak. It's all about this f2 pawn. And yeah, I said once again, the diagonal is very weak. So queen e3, rook h8 is already a mating threat. And it's very difficult to stop. And yeah, white can put some resistance, but this is already -7. And yeah, knight f4, look at this. So knight e1, it is winning, -4, pretty good. Rook h8 is also -4. But knight f4 is -8. So we found the hyper accurate way of converting this. And yeah, rook h8, even though we didn't see... I mean, okay, admittedly, I thought rook f1 was completely winning here. Missed knight takes f1. But, you know, give me a break. Now, not only give me a break, but, I mean, you can sense that there's something wrong with white's position if you have so many pieces potentially attacking your opponent's king. And if you flip this very quickly, yeah, you quickly realize there's something wrong with white's pieces. Why are they all so far from the king? Why is the king alone? Okay, enough of this. Thank you for the game, Team Cheeser. We're probably going to berserk the next one as well. But we're far from number 1. I would like to see if I can reach number 1. It's been a while since I've tried. And we're taking ages. I mean, this is where I would, you know, talk to, answer questions maybe, socialize. But what can I say? I'm unpopular. It hurts. Okay, enough of all of that dramatic stuff. We're gonna berserk against Mr. Ekin Aydemir. Best of luck. And they play e4. So hopefully we're gonna get our Philidor. They go for bishop c4. it's a how do you call that, frequent client in low rated players. Bishop c4 seems to be the way. I mean, they're playing for the Italian, but I'm not gonna go e5. After bishop c4, I get c6 d5. This is my plan. I'm gonna hit that bishop. You're gonna say, well, David, are you not wasting a move if you're gonna ultimately go for d5? You could have done that right away. Yeah, but I mean, the fact that I didn't go for e5 also grants me some flexibility, I would argue. Okay, we achieve d5. Looks, things are looking good. I don't want to pin my knight. I'm gonna play bishop d7. This is a little bit more tense. And also, practically speaking, it's more likely your opponent is going to do what my opponent did, which is breaking the tension. I suspect my opponent should have simply castled. But breaking the tension only helps me, I think. I just develop my knight, which is what I would have done either way. Sure, I would have probably preferred knight c6 over knight bd7, but, you know, knight bd7 is better than nothing. It's better than keeping the knight on b8, you know. And slowly but surely, we're getting rid of the opening, or finishing with the opening, I should say. I'm going to cause a short side, and officially we're both in middle game thinking. In a middle game mentality. Not sure why my opponent played d3 and not d4. I guess they were a little bit scared of a weakness on e4, which I thought would... okay, I don't think it's such a big deal. Bishop g5, I'm going to ask the question with h6. Usually very useful to do this. If they want to take, I'm very happy. Be my guest. Give me that bishop. And this one I couldn't have... Wow. This one I didn't predict. Bishop h6, it goes without saying, this sacrifice is not likely to work. And when I say that, I mean it's not going to work. Because white doesn't have enough pieces. That's something that people don't understand sometimes. That was a lonely bishop, and like, you know, you can argue you have only one attacker, so there's not enough compensation for the sacrificed piece, which means that we should be able to consolidate our advantage. Now you're gonna say, David, you could have blocked the check. Wait a second, we still have to be careful about your opponent's resources. So we're gonna go back, queen d2, attacking h6 yet again. And what do we play here? We could play rook g6 now, but then knight h4 is a little bit annoying. Could play bishop f8 or queen f8. I think I'm gonna bring my queen to f8. It looks very passive. David, what are you doing? Your queen is defending a miserable pawn. But I have the idea of bringing it to g7, which is attacking the king. Now, do we take on e5? We do have to speed up. Keep an eye on the clock. Okay, well, what do we play here? I don't really want to take, but at the same time, if I play queen g7, for example, they get f4. Okay, you know what? I'm not afraid of that. Another thing that my opponent may think they're threatening is queen h6 or knight f7 sacrifices, which wouldn't have worked. Sure, it does look cool because you're getting the queen back, but in the aftermath, you actually lost the knight for a pawn. Now, knight takes d7 is what I wanted my opponent to do, because if I break the tension, the pawn is annoying, right? But if my opponent takes first, then the pawn remains on d4. So after knight takes d7, queen f4, I'm not saying I'm going to play this now, but my knight can return to f6, and f6 is generally a good square for that knight. Okay. I'm going to play rook a c8. Oh, wait a second. What am I... Whoa, what? Wow, I'm terrible. I made a mistake. So who can tell me why? Immediately someone already pointed it out. I made the mistake of talking excessively, first of all. But second of all, I made the mistake of completely forgetting what our threat was with queen g7. So as someone already pointed out, we shouldn't have taken. We had queen g2 mate, which my opponent blundered again. So thank you for the game, Ekin Aydemir. let's just analyze that very quickly. And yeah, you were completely right. Whoever spotted it that quickly, that was embarrassing. Now let's take a look at this. Knight f6, knight c3, c6. Yeah, the engine tends to like easy, but okay, this is all very natural. And d5, and yeah, there's already... Okay, it's slightly better for white after bishop b3, which is not such an easy move to find. You have to understand that there's some pressure against f7 and e4. So you're gonna get back your pawn with a little bit more of initiative, a little bit more activity. But after e takes d5, black has completely equalized. Bishop d7 was correct. All of these moves are natural. Playing d4 was probably better than d3. The engine doesn't think it's a big deal. And after bishop g5, h6, obviously bishop h4 or bishop f4, but bishop takes h6 is completely not working. But thank you for the game. We have a little bit of fire on us now. And now we're gonna wait 1,000 years because we get paired every... there we go. Complaining works. I'm sorry, Leeches. Leeches is amazing. Okay. Best of luck, Akiba, Beranik. We're gonna berserk. And we're gonna open up with e4. They play e6. It's been a while since we played a French. We're gonna go for this sideline, known as the Bourdonnais French. I'm quite sure I'm completely messing up the pronunciation of that, but okay. So the plan of this is I'm delaying d2, d4. Why are you doing that? Because sometimes, and not only sometimes, but most of the time, when you go d4, you have to constantly calculate c takes d4, which is not a problem. But it is a problem if you want to execute certain idea, certain plan. And that plan is knight a3, knight c2. If your pawn is already on d4, as soon as you go knight e3, c takes d4 followed by bishop takes a3 may be something you do not want to get into. So by prolonging this, you're essentially saying, look, I'm going to go knight a3, knight c2 first. And only then, once my knight is nicely placed on c2, go d4. Additionally, even if it provokes black to go d4, which is the way to go, but black has to be more careful. Black has to know the concrete way in which they have to follow d4 with. It's not as easy as just putting the pawn on d4. If you simply push d4 as black, I mean, white gets interesting positions after bishop d3, bishop e4. But okay, back to this current position. That was all in the past. We managed to get d4 now with our knight on c2. So we're going to take c takes d4. And yeah, this is something I wanted to talk about, so pretty conveniently. Black plays bishop b4. That is a very important bishop. But let me tell you something. White has a space advantage. So I'm going to make this shocking looking move, king f2. I do not want to exchange pieces. Exchanging pieces only helps black. If I play king f2, and let's say they play f6, which kind of the light squares here are a little bit weak. But okay, my point here is, after a3, all of a sudden, what does black do with this bishop? If they go back to e7, annoying, that's on the way of the knight. If they go back to f8, well, pretty depressing, right? Back to f8. So they have to go to a5, which only helps white further, because then b4 is gaining a tempo, and this is what we wanted to do either way. They go to c7, I think bishop b6 was probably better. But yeah, essentially what we've done by putting our king on f2, it's not as we're putting the king on f2 because we think it's super safe there. Although I don't think it's in danger by any means. But we're just simply avoiding the exchanging of pieces because we have a space advantage. So whenever you have space advantage, try not to exchange pieces. That's the That's the conclusion. So we were threatening bishop g6. There were two ways black could have prevented it by closing things off. But I think black prevents it in the superior way, knight ge7. So bishop g6 obviously is running into knight takes g6. And now let's think here once again. What do we do here? I think I don't want to castle manually. I think my rook is somehow useful on h1. I'm gonna go... Oof, this is very tempting actually. What do we do here? I want to go for knight h4 ideas. Threatening queen h5. And this is very concrete. It's not as if I was playing this lightly. By the way, I link this back to if the bishop was on b6, knight h4 wouldn't be as easily played because I would have to constantly calculate knight 64. But okay, my opponent castled, and immediately I'm actually regretting my decision of going knight h4. What a stupid move by me. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna accept my mistake. Yeah. Why not? Like, I shouldn't have done that. That was pretty silly. I'm gonna take with the f pawn. I'm gonna swallow my pride, swallow my words, whatever the saying is. I'm gonna play rook e1, king g1. I'm gonna castle manually, which is what I should have done immediately, as we're gonna probably talk about in the post-mortem. But that's fine. Mistakes were made. And life is tough. Knight f5 is probably a decent move here. My opponent has 8 minutes and a half. I have 1 minute, a little bit less than 2 minutes. Not good. We have to stabilize the position. That's very important. We have space, and if we had like 1, 2, 3 moves in a row, then it's very nice. Like white manages to survive and stabilize, as I said, consolidate the advantage. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy when you've occupied so much space. Now they go bishop b6, very annoying move. Takes, given that this is pinned. That's the threat. That is the annoying threat. So do we take? We're gonna have to take, unfortunately, I think. I really don't want to. I'm even willing to play king e1, but that's such an ugly looking move. That's insane. Okay, I'm gonna go for king e1. I choose not. I prefer to put my king back on e1 than allowing my opponent to exchange pieces. That's how much. Ugh. Ooh. I was calculating me, but that's how much I want to prevent black from exchanging pieces. Now, there are many things that are happening tactically, on a tactical level here. Takes has to be a move to calculate, and my opponent does go for it. So this is exciting. It seems like we are falling for a trick. It seems like we are falling for a trick. But actually, takes. Look at this. There's 2 layers to this. Oh, look, white won a piece. Why did black do that? Oh no, queen h4. But then, oh no, part 2, g3. Be my guest. Take that bishop. And only now black is realizing, oh, things are not actually working out for us, because after queen takes d4, very luckily, I didn't see this before playing king e1. But fortunately for us, we have bishop h7 check, winning the queen. So black has to essentially, black lost a piece. So they go back. Now we're going to go queen d2. We have a minute left, so we have to be careful. Queen g4 I'm expecting. Yeah, that was not a good move by me, by the way. I'm gonna go queen d1 afterwards. Okay, maybe I go bishop e2 actually. No, I'm gonna go queen d1. Go queen h3, I go bishop f1. That's the idea. And if they go queen g5, then I'm gonna change my mind. There we go. Mistake fixed. So I'm gonna go rook f1, exchange pieces. And yeah. I'm gonna stop talking because the amount of times I've lost completing winning positions, such as this one. It seems to be a non-stopping something. Endless, I should say, endless. 23. I'm gonna put my king on d2. I think it's reasonably safe there. Queen h3, queen e2. Oh yeah, bishop e2. Yeah, this is how important tactics are. Queen e2 probably works as well, but bishop e2 makes things so much easier. Because now it's forced, they're forced to take on e3. And that only helps white, because we're simplifying. Rook e4, bishop e6 check. Once again, tactics being the absolute, the all-important chess factor. Now we're taking on b7. I think we're kind of in the clear here. I mean, obviously we're not gonna relax, but you know, rook e1 is a threat. King d7, rook f1, followed by rook f7, and we've survived the worst. But yeah, that was an interesting game. We're gonna look at what I could have played instead of wasting time with knight h4 and knight f3. Did you see how important those two tempos ended up being? I mean, essentially we were lost at some point. If it hadn't been because of that trick, then we would have for sure had a rougher time. Okay, check. d4, if I'm allowed. b5. a4. Pre-move a little bit here. a5, you can go h4. It didn't go. Check. No, check this one. b6, we can pre-move this because this is defending this. Well, there's no way black can move the king and keep attacking the pawn on a6, so I'm not sure. Not sure if that's relevant. But yeah. "17 seconds left. Should be enough. Bishop d6. Just to be very safe, bishop d5. Black still has some moves with the pawn, which allows us to not worry at all about stalemate. Thank you very much, Akiba Peranic. Let's take a look at that. So all of this is reasonably... Yeah, I should have actually criticized this a little bit more. h6... I mean, h5 is a very serious move, and h5 is one of the best, actually. But h6... not as useful as h5. h5 is with planting this knight on f5, or even sometimes on g4. Maybe that's what my opponent meant to play, and mouse slipped or something. Hello, ajedrecista. Knight a3, bishop d7, knight c2. And white already has a very comfortable position. So bishop b4, king f2. The engine likes knight takes b4, but king f2 is a... like they have similar evaluation. The difference is 0.8 and plus 0.8 and plus 1. 0.1. Although the engine changes their mind. The point is that king f2 continues to keep a better position for white. And f6, yeah, knight h4 here would have been very strong, because now obviously black is not in time to castle, and even after this there's queen h5. But I wanted to show how black's pieces can crash against each other. Bishop c7, we go bishop d3, and now we have a very nice position. And here we should have taken, and only after that gone knight h4. Because if they castle, this is a big mistake now. There's check, and, you know, king f7, queen h5, king h8, queen h5 as well. I mean, black's king is much more exposed. But by playing knight h4 and allowing them to castle first, obviously after e takes f6, black no longer has to take with the pawn, they can take with the rook. So very silly move, knight h4, very, very bad move. Instead of this, sorry, we already answered the question. E takes f6 would have been better. b5 would have been better. g3 would have been better. Like king g2, for example. I mean, even something like rook f1, castles, and king g1 would have been better. Like, this continues to... This is +1 almost. So, yeah. Mistakes were made. And then we had to go back. d takes c5 would have been a little bit better because, yeah, I mean, keeping this file closed in this delicate way, I mean, it's not the ideal way of keeping things closed, but it's better than allowing this rook to exert the amount of pressure that it exerted on us. It was pretty tough. So d takes c5 would have been more resilient. And yeah, we're completely lost. -2. -2 in king e1, but then this is, yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I told you I set this trick up on purpose. I happened to find the move after I played king e1, which is not ideal. But, you know, let's also not punish ourselves because of it. I mean, we're allowed to see things after they've been played. It happens to GMs. It's allowed. So yeah, this trick does not work if the king was on h8. If the king was on, like, if there was a pawn on g6, yeah, all of this wouldn't be working. But because queen takes d4, bishop h7, that's the trick. And after this, it was reasonable conversion. So nothing to see there. Well, we're 46th. Pretty good. Let's see, how much time do we have left? We have maybe time for 2 or 3 more, depending. But we're also getting stronger opposition. So we'll find out. I wonder why we're waiting so much. Is it because, like, out of 800 people, almost 900 people, is it because, like, no one else is waiting? Or no one else around the rating range? It's a genuine question, I'm curious. Ludacris, wow, we berserked at the same time. That was pretty satisfying. Best of luck. We're gonna go for d6. And they go for f4. Yeah, this is a rare... very rare guest. We're gonna go for the weird f5. If they're going f4, why should we not go f5? But yeah, jokes aside, with this move, I'm essentially playing, you know, every single time you put your knight on f6, right away, you're blocking the f pawn, and in the future, you have to spend one more tempo to move the knight and then push the pawn. So by doing it immediately, you're, you know, gaining some sort of advantage. But on the flip side, I would be lying if it didn't have, you know, disadvantages. If anything, it has more disadvantages than advantages, because then white can base their planning around the weak squares, the weak diagonal, etc. So for now, I'm going to keep the tension. I could play e5 right now, and it would be a completely symmetrical position. But I'm going to play g6. I think my bishop is better on g7. And at the same time, we're going to speed things up. We're going to castle. And now this is a very interesting position. What on earth are, like, where's our plan? It's kind of similar to a Dutch somehow. But at the same time, it's not. So what is this? I'm going to go for e5. Ultimately, I will have to go for this, but it's not a symmetrical position anymore. I think my bishop on g7 is better than their bishop on e2. King h1, I'm not... I mean, it's definitely a safer square for the king. But not sure if it was called for. Ah, I see. They wanted bishop e3, bishop g1. That makes sense. If they go bishop e3 immediately, knight g4 is very annoying. So they go king h1. And bishop e3, knight g4 would be running into bishop g1. They go knight g5. Interesting. So h6, I'm assuming they're simply going to leave it there. Now, not just because we see them having that intention, we should be scared of. We shouldn't believe our opponent. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to go h6. I don't believe them. Okay, well, there we go. It worked out. Yeah, I mean... So my opponent's saying, look, I mean, my opponent could be just, like, they messed up. But it could be also that they said, look, your opponent h6 is weaker, so now knight h4 is going to be a bigger problem. It could be that as well. Which, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to play king h7. Anticipating knight h4. If knight h4, maybe there's knight takes e4, queen takes h4 tactics now. Maybe. Okay, they go for that. Kind of predicted that. But wait a second. Knight g4, bishop g1, there's e takes f4. So they have to go bishop d2. And that's kind of a win. Ooh, wow. Thank you. This is amazing. So now we get this juicy dark squared bishop. Now how do we do this? I'm gonna take here first. Or should we take here first? I'm gonna take on f takes e4. The point is that I want to take, and then take ultimately on f4. So that's winning a pawn. So now we take. Everything is forced. Obviously white has to take back if they don't want to lose a bishop. We're also making sure that there's no tactics with checks on g5, for example. I think with the bishop on g7, everything is very safe. And it's not only that we won a pawn, we won a very important pawn. It was a central pawn to some extent. We're going to play d5, bothering this knight. We don't want this. This knight is active on e4. It's not hitting anything. But yeah, we're pushing our opponent's pieces further back. And while that's not necessarily always a good sign, it is in this case. Okay, well, bishop e6, queen d7 looks very natural. The danger of these positions is you fall in love with them. And, you know, you have to continue staying alert. It's not over until it's over. I played g5, very weakening move, but very strengthening move as well. So I'm willing to pay the price. And I like the idea of putting my bishop on g6. This bishop is doing an amazing job, heavy lifting, in fact. Doing lots of heavy lifting by keeping that diagonal pretty safe. Now they go bishop d3, and I'm willing to exchange those bishops. Because yeah, it was actually those bishops that scared me. It was the light squared bishop that scared me from white. So if I can exchange it, then I'm happy. Now knight e5, unfortunately, is losing another pawn. So now we're not only up one, but two pawns. They go d4. That is defended by the queen, so we simply have to drop back. Queen f3 attacking the pawn. We're going to defend it. And you know, the very similar thing is going to happen if they go queen d3. It's not going to happen right now. But if they go for the check, in the same way that they went bishop d3 before, or they wanted to go bishop d3, and we occupied, we defended with bishop f5, we would have done the same with queen f5. I can win another pawn here, but I prefer to keep the tension. Not only that, actually, we can't even... We're actually falling for a trick. Queen d3 check at the end of the line would be picking up the bishop on d4. So I'm going to play queen f5. Now I think I am threatening to take the pawn through rook takes e1. Rook takes e1, bishop takes d4. And we have a minute and 30 seconds, so we should relax a little bit. I mean, we're doing well. Let's keep up the pressure. Keep going. This happens a lot. It's reminiscent, actually, the structure of King's Gambit positions, where white sacrifices a pawn on f4. I mean, it's not a surprise. My opponent did go f4. I'm going to go rook e3. That seems to be falling into a trick. It's queen takes e3, but actually after f takes e3, rook takes e5, rook takes e5, it's simply an exchange, an equal exchange. They go queen h5. And this is actually what I wanted to see, or something of this sort. Now I make my life 1,000 times easier by playing queen g6. Because if white has to take, I'm also placing a small trap and my opponent seems to be falling for it. Queen g4. Queen takes g6, king takes g6 is obviously winning for black. Black is up 2 pawns. And you know, you get rid of all the danger by getting rid of the queens. But queen g4 is... what am I saying? I'm the one falling for tricks. I thought I was trapping the queen for some reason. After h5, but they have queen d7. But not to worry, I have rook f7 and, you know. Now I'm going for an attack with g4. Oh, wait a second, queen f7? Oh, maybe I could have forced the queen trade again, but okay. For the sake of not losing, I'm simply going to make natural looking moves and not flag. We have less than a minute. And once again, it should be enough, but better not to test it. Thank you, Messane. That name sounds familiar. f3, rook e1, bishop d4. I'm gonna take 1/3 pawn. And things are looking good. I'm gonna open the f file to offer further trades. And yeah, it's not ideal to, I mean, I wanted to get rid of the queens and I'm exchanging everything but the queens. But that's enough as well. Now I'm gonna go e2. Rook takes e2 runs into back rank mate. King g1 runs into queen f5. Threatening queen f2 and queen f1. h3 I take. g3. Queen e4 would have been game over. And you know, white can try queen h4, but queen f1. They can't stop queen f2 or queen f1 at the same time. h3 they go we go g3. I think that's hyper accurate. And there's nothing to stop queen f1. Yeah, that was an instructive game, I think. Thank you for the game, Ludacris. Let's take a look at that. So f5 seems to be sound. I thought it would be... I was fearing it would be dubious, but it's actually possible. And I won't play in a title arena anytime soon. Although I did fix a little bit my internet this afternoon, so maybe if I see that it's pretty reasonable. Is it today? I think there may be an arena today. I'm also kind of waiting for the 3+0 arena. Hello, Chess Tactics. But okay, what I was saying is f5, I was fearing this would be dubious, but it turns out to be very sound, very interesting. And yeah, the opening was very natural. My opponent was right. I should develop the bishop through e7. Because through g6 allows e5, and this is now a big problem for black. I was relying on takes and knight g4, putting pressure on e5, but there's d4, and all of a sudden I'm not finding the counterplay I was hoping for. But my opponent went bishop e2, and now all of a sudden e5 moves are a little bit less powerful, given that I have some pressure against e5, although white is still doing extremely well. Actually, I'm surprised how well white is doing. This is this is plus 1.2, which is obviously not good. But yeah, once my opponent castled after castle short side, now e4, like, it's funny, it's interesting. Like, you would think that e5 would still be strong because, you know, you just included castle short side for both sides. Why would that play such a big role? But it's more concrete. I mean, e5, now there's d takes e5, d takes f takes e5, knight takes e5. And a typical double attack fork on d4. And yeah, once we got e5, we completely equalized, so we are out of the danger. Knight g5, yeah, we called it a bluff. it was a bluff. Everyone agreed. King h7 was okay. E takes f4, bishop takes f4, g5 right away would have been stronger. But yeah, bishop e3, definitely a mistake. Now we get knight g4, bishop g1, e takes f4, wins a pawn. And yeah, playing queen d2 was maybe not the best resistance, because it's losing the pawn and the dark square bishop. At least if you're going to lose the pawn, keep the dark square bishop alive. And after this, it was pretty reasonable conversion. No moment. There was no moment in which white was at anything. Okay, well, 26th place. Pretty decent. The hour is over, actually. Okay, let's see if we can get in top 10. I want to try. Now I'm going to check very quickly. And maybe put it on the... So you guys are saying there's an arena. Is it happening already? Not sure. Okay, well, let me check. Yeah, I missed it. It was yesterday, I think, or something. I don't know. I'll try to make the 3+0 arena. I haven't done it in a while. Okay, we're berserked. We have to be quick. Gonna play knight f3, knight c6, and we're gonna play bishop e2. Not the Italian, not the Rui Lopez, but bishop e2. And they go a6, pretty interestingly. As if we had played bishop b5, you know. a6 doesn't seem like a very good move. And h6, yeah, definitely my opponent is experimenting a little bit here. And you know what? Should we do it? Knight 65? I mean, it's definitely not the best move. You know what? Let's play normal chess. Let's play d4. We're essentially playing a Scotch, but with the inclusion of bishop e2 castle short side for white and the inclusion of a6, h6 for black. And I don't think that's going to be that useful for black. I get e5 now. Usually the way black replies to this in the normal Scotch is queen e7. But in this case, obviously this is... sorry, no. What am I saying? They don't reply this. They go knight d5 and then white at some point goes queen e2 themselves. But either way, obviously having the king castle already is extremely useful. I'm going to go c4. They go knight b6. And now let's think. I'm going to play knight c3. Very natural move. They go bishop e7. So this bishop on e2 is very nice, very developed, obviously. But I think on d3 is better, especially because there's no knight on f6. So by playing bishop d3, I'm looking forward to some queen f3, queen e4, queen f3, queen f5 actions. Now, this bishop on c8 is keeping an eye on f5, which renders the last thing I said wrong. They played d6. I'm going to open the e file. I also didn't see any other way of somehow keeping the tension. It was easier to take. And now I'm going to play queen f3. Notice how my opponent is actually prolonging castle short side. My opponent is 1600. But they're playing pretty well. If they understand that they should not castle, that's a pretty good opponent right there. I want to go queen g3 to kind of bother my opponent. But I'm going to start with rook e1. They go rook b8. Interesting. Now I think queen g3 should be strong. Yeah, my opponent's playing quickly. A little bit annoying. Queen g4 maybe stronger than queen g3. Queen g4 keeps some chances of playing queen d4 maybe. I'm going to play queen g4. Obviously this bishop on b7 is not nearly any good as... What am I saying? Goodness gracious, that was horribly communicated. It's not as good as... This bishop on b7 is not as good as in this diagonal. This bishop on c8 was doing quite a bit of... Quite a lot of work. Now, castle short set definitely in this version is completely wrong. And you know, there are a couple of ways we can go about this. There's queen e4, which threatens both queen h7 and queen takes e7. But I choose bishop h6. It's more violent. But David, you shouldn't, like, violence is bad. Yeah, not in chess. Bishop g7, queen f5, rook e8, and we'll resign. Yeah, maybe I was impulsive here. Queen h5, g6 takes, king h8, and there's no mate. What? How is there no mate? That's insane. Okay. How is there no win here? What? I'm amazed. That's insane. Bishop d2 then? Horrible. I mean, what a depressing thing. Queen f3. Trying to go for 94 now. Yeah, now I'm a little bit in trouble. Not positionally, of course. Like, positionally, we're completely winning. But we have a minute left, and you want to go for the kill immediately. To state the obvious. But now, yeah, this is looking good now. Because that bishop was important. Now I'm gonna go queen h3. Threatening queen h7, and the point of putting the bishop on d2, I mean, I didn't see it this far, obviously. But some part of me was hoping that it was going to be useful to play bishop c3. And yeah, turned out to be true. The dark squares are so weak. The bishop on c3 is a monster. And that should be game over. Bishop g2, king g2, queen g5, king h1. Is there a win? Oh, bishop g2, maybe there's queen h6. Maybe that's the hyper accurate way. Okay, queen h6 regardless. We don't want to go into an endgame, all for the sake of time. We're being hyper accurate. Obviously, you guys are asking yourself, yeah, bishop f6 is working, because after bishop h3, gh3, you're up a piece. Not only that, you have the bishop pair, and then the dark squares are very weak, completely winning. But queen h6 is more winning. Queen c3, but yeah. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to find, okay. Try to find out when Leech's titled arenas are. Yeah, this is running into yet another sacrifice. Queen g6 followed by queen h7. Thank you for the game, Magila. But yeah, a6, h6 is, it goes without saying, this is extremely dubious. Or extremely provoking, I was gonna say. I wanted to say. Now let's see if we punish this correctly. So a6, you can get away with this. But h6 is too much. And we reacted in the correct way. d4. According to the engine, e takes d4 is fine. Knight takes d4, knight f6. We should have played knight c3 according to the engine. And after bishop c5, just essentially some sort of, yeah, some sort of Italian, some sort of four knights, some hybrid. Then this would have been bad news for black. They have to already lose the castling rights. And not only that, like e5 and then knight d5, there's rook d1, bishop e6. Wow, this is already a win. +3, knight e4, bishop e7. I see. So there's this tactic. So you would wish to put your pawn on c4 so you can pin this knight with a pawn, essentially winning the knight. And you can do that with the tempo, knight e4. And there's nothing black can do against knight takes c5 and c4. So yeah, we play this. Knight takes c6 is fine. e5. They should have taken with the d pawn. That was the lesser evil. But after this, it's completely winning. And we played pretty reasonably, actually. +3. Yeah. And here, yeah, bishop h6 is the right way. So we did go ultimately for the right way, but I just didn't see what to do here. The engine says this is the most trivial thing ever. They simply go back to h5 and they go rook e3 and rook g3 and completely kill any hope or any dream, and they essentially play with the initiative. I just didn't see any direct kill, but it makes sense that this is completely winning for white. I went bishop d2, which is winning, but less winning than that. Wow, even this is winning. Yeah. But yeah, after this, queen h3, there's no other way other than g6. Like, think about this. Black's... the engine is suggesting for black bishop e4, so... You know how bad black's position is if the engine is suggesting such a move. And it's completely game over here. Okay, well, we're almost there. I'm probably gonna stop after we're in the top 10. Just because we want to be... We want to make it in the top once in a while. Okay, Temir King. Best of luck. We've been getting white, actually. Or I think it's the second time we're white. They go for c6. This is the Caro-Kann. What do we play against the Caro-Kann? It's been a while. Do we play the exchange Caro-Kann? I mean, there are a variety of things we can go. We can go King's Indian attack with d3, g3, knight d2, knight f3, bishop g2. And we can go the exchange variation. I'm going to go for the exchange variation of the Caro-Kann. Bishop d3, stopping bishop f5. Obviously, the queen is keeping an eye on g4. So it's all about keeping that bishop under control. So knight c6, we go c3. But now you get to see the downside of going for the exchange Caro-Kann, and that is that black can go for e5. Now, black is very clever. Black goes knight f6. Now, if I go knight f3, they play bishop g4 and they're happy. So I'm going to play h3. Now, the inclusion of knight f6, h3 does make e5 stronger. But they go e6, surprisingly. Black should have gone e5. e5 is the best. d takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop e5, and we've been playing those games. We've had that position before. Very interesting. But after e6, this bishop is inside the pawn chain. And white immediately gets a slightly better position. So I'm going to play knight f3 now. I'm expecting my opponent to play bishop d6, but they play a6. Does this allow bishop f4? The thing is, bishop f4, bishop d6, I don't want to trade those bishops. I'm only going to go for that if I'm ready to go knight e5. So bishop f4, bishop d6. Am I ready to go knight e5 here? I don't think so. They take, and knight d7, and this pawn is pretty weak. So I'm going to castle. I'm going to allow bishop d6. I understand a6. a6 is a useful move, but I don't think the order, the priority order was right by black. I think black should take this bishop out, castle, and then go a6, b5, minority attack. h6, that one I don't understand. I mean, I understand that they want to go g5 maybe, or prevent bishop g5, but that's they shouldn't be fearing. They shouldn't be fearing that. So now that black has wasted moves with a6 and h6, pretty funny actually that my opponent did this twice in a row. Our opposition has been doing that twice in a row. Now I'm going to go knight e5, and I don't think takes knight d7 is a problem anymore, because now we got rook e1, queen h5, and black hasn't castled yet. So yeah, it makes sense that we're ready to go knight e5. Now we're going to go rook e1. So we have this very annoying occupation on e5, and we're overprotecting it. That's the source of our slight advantage. So I'm going to bring this other knights into the game. They go bishop e8. Interesting. I don't think knight 67 was ever annoying. Sometimes black does this once the rook is on the other side. But this way, I'm not sure. Oh my... Ooh, e. I'm sorry, I apologize. This is poor by me. I missed knight takes f7, rook takes f7, bishop takes d6. This would have been winning a pawn and the dark square bishop. So my opponent actually was right. Yeah. I'm the wrong one. I'm gonna go rook c1. I'm trying to go for bishop e1, queen c2, so I prefer this rook on, obviously on the other side of that blockade. But that was poor by me, goodness gracious. Let's move on. Part of being a good chess player is to forgive yourself. Or I should say, not torture yourself too much, because you have to still perform for the rest of the game. You don't want to be thinking about previous variations, especially if you have tons of other variations that you haven't figured out on the present position. So update yourself, you know, accept reality. You missed things, your opponent has missed things as well. Optimize your chances in the current position. On that note, bishop b1, now we're getting ready for queen c2. And black is not stopping it, so I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go queen c2. Maybe they think that they can play g6, but I'm not gonna sacrifice on g6. I'm gonna go bishop takes h6. And this could be winning the exchange. Thank you, Royal Solo. Now, there may be some way for black to actually... Wait a second, what am I doing? Only now I realize, what am I... I'm not threatening queen h7, what am I doing? I mean, we could argue we're threatening knight g4. But that wasn't my initial intention. Very poor, very poor. Yeah. I'm gonna go knight g4 actually, for the reasons that we stated before. We're threatening this and queen h7 mate. Pretty obvious. We're not being very subtle about this. Thank you, thank you. I try. There's knight g6, I think. But then there's knight takes f6, g takes f6, and bishop takes h6. So we're winning the pawn. But I don't like the idea of kind of extinguishing my attack just because of a pawn. Now my opponent goes for something else, and I don't think this is quite working. I think against this I can simply take, queen takes e4, and this is actually, if anything, running into more problems than the other. Because after queen takes e4, first things first. Okay, let's stop here for a second. There's many ways. You can take on e4, and the idea is that you're attacking the rook on a8 and threatening queen h7 mate. But then there's f5. And after f5, you have to see that there's queen takes e6 check, and then you're winning the bishop on d6. But there would have been also another option of going bishop takes d6 before. That's why I said maybe we should stop. They don't go f5, knight g6 is played, but this is running into essentially the same thing. Obviously, we're not going to take first. That would be only winning the exchange. And black would actually have a nasty amount of initiative there. So we're going to take first, and then we're going to take the rook. Bishop c6 looks like it's trapping the queen, but luckily for us, we have queen a7. Well, okay, I say luckily, but we did have to calculate that. If you played queen takes a8 and you didn't see bishop c6, then yeah, you can consider yourself lucky. You shouldn't have done that. Okay, knight h4. Clearly, there's some tension against g2. How do we do this? We go bishop e4. Or should we? It is allowing some counterplay, actually. You know what? Actually, it's not easy. I'm gonna go bishop e4 for the sake of exchanging pieces. I am running into f5 stuff, but I'm willing to bite the bullet. I mean, we are up the exchange. So now we go rook e3, I thought. and rook g3. With the idea of taking here. Trying to make use of both of my pieces in this way. Does look like rook takes f2 is very tempting, but rook takes g4 I think is working. Queen f4 is very dangerous as well. Dangerous looking. Yeah, definitely not converting this in the best way. We have to play rook f1 because our rook on c1 was attacked and f2 simultaneously, so one way of defending both of them is by playing rook f1. Rook f7 we give a check. And we can zigzag ourselves actually, this is funny. Rook f7, queen e8, if they go rook f8, queen b7. Exactly the same position, but our queen is a little bit more active. We're not gonna get time to fully calculate that. Rook takes g4, now I kind of decompose and disconnect Black's coordination against f2, so all of a sudden, all of that scary... Ooh, almost blundered everything. All of that scary initiative... I should stop talking actually, I have 20 seconds. But all of that scary initiative vanishes. I'm gonna go a4, black can't take, this is pinned, knight e3, runs into queen takes e6, followed by queen e3. Important things to consider actually, knight g3, knight e3, all of these active looking moves, you have to make sure they're not working. That's part of converting an advantage. Queen g4 obviously is defended by the pawn. So by playing a4, I'm essentially threatening queen b5. Threatening to exchange pieces. Exchanging pieces is a good step forward. Whether we can convert that with 20 seconds is a different story. Let's see. Rook b8. Okay, they fall for a trap. That's good news because now we get to simplify. That's a big moment actually. We're gonna simplify further. And now it's all about, you know, keeping things, like just not allowing absolutely anything. No checks. Just completely kill the game. I'm gonna go rook e1. I'm threatening rook e8. I'm threatening a discovered check with rook e6. So queen g6 makes sense. I'm gonna go d5. I'm gonna push the pawns. Every time black plays queen g6, I'm gonna play queen g3. Obviously, I'm offering the queen trade every single time. Now queen g6 makes sense. Anything else runs into rook e8, trading further pieces, and I think this is game over actually. Because they have to take. And queen f5 is coming. g6, queen f7 is made, queen g6, rook h8. This is like every single time you see a queen on f5, a king on h7, and these two pawns like this, it's queen f5 is usually very strong. Thank you for the game, Temir King. A little bit closer than we wanted, but let's take a look at it. So we went for the exchange Caro-Kann. And yeah, it's very important to see, yeah, look at this. I mean, when you're doing your opening work and when you see your pawn, you should have usually some guidance on what you're playing, why you're playing certain openings. You should have some expert. For example, when you take a look at the Philidor, my expert and the player I've learned tons from is Leon Levic, Grandmaster from Croatia. He has a YouTube channel and you should check it out actually. And you know, he's done so much, he's taught me so much. And the same goes with anything, any opening that you have. So for example, in the exchange Caro-Kann, I'm not sure who's an expert, but you can take a look at the opening book and see who's been playing certain lines. And that's how you use the master's database in your favor. So I'm not sure who's been playing this a lot. I mean, if anything, you're a little bit limited by the master's database, I must admit. You can also look it up on Wikipedia sometimes. But yeah, I'm not sure who's been playing this religiously. Usually there's a player that plays the exchange Caro-Kann religiously. There's always someone that plays something religiously. So you should learn from them. because they played it religiously. Either way, moving on. The thing that I want to say is, like, you can see, look at this. The most popular moves are g6 and e5. And the engine says e5 is the best. So that's how you build your repertoire. e6 is no good. It's keeping this bishop inside the pawn chain. So after e5, takes, bishop b5. I know it's not even this, sorry, not f3. You're allowing black to take the bishop, which is, I mean, already kind of damage control from white. I think bishop b5 is too ambitious. And then, yeah, I mean, it's an IQP position, but black got rid of one of the, like, the bishop. And yeah, black has the bishop pair. The bishop pair usually compensates for a lot. Hello, Doc Waffle. Would you mind sharing it in the Discord? I think I'm on my way out after one more game. After e6, knight f3, a6 is definitely very out there. I mean, it's objectively fine, but bishop d6 makes more sense. The question here is, should we have played bishop f4? And the answer is no. Bishop d6, and then, you know, we can't keep the tension. We have to take, and I prefer to keep the bishops on the board, because after bishop d6, castle short side, there are ways. So, for example, let's say bishop d7. There are ways you can... Exactly. You can ultimately put your bishop on f4 after blocking it with knight e5. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I mean, you can put it there and I can take a look at it separately, depending on what I'm gonna do, like, afterwards. But I'm definitely gonna take a look at it on the Discord. Now a6, h6, definitely that's wrong. And then, you know, now I'm getting knight e5, and very nice position. And as I said, we blundered this. I mean, my opponent reminded me by playing bishop e8. And yeah, we actually went for... All of this was correct. I mean, even though I was completely delusional, because I thought I was somehow threatening queen h7. FM, by the way. We are threatening knight g4, so maybe my subconscious was onto something. But yeah, black had to play g6 and already we're winning the pawn. And after knight e7, knight g4 is the correct way. And yeah, this is already +3. Almost +3, and this is +5, and yeah, black is suffering. So yeah, pretty good game. a6, h6, if my opponent is listening to me, that's probably not the way to go. That is not the way to go, I should say. Go for something more active, e5. Let's see, are we in the top 10? Oh, no, we're not in the top 10. Okay. One more game. Ooh, we're getting a 2000 rated player. Both berserking, we're going to play d6, as we have been. It transposes to an e4 opening. To go bishop d3. Bishop d3 seems to be popular lately, and they go for c4 once again, very popular lately. Go bishop e7. Gonna castle short side. Essentially, this is some sort of Benoni. I'm gonna go knight e6, knight c7. David, that knight looks very passive. Well, believe it or not, this helps me to go b5, which my opponent completely ignores. I'm gonna go b5. I'm gonna sacrifice on c6. Why, my opponent's completely ignoring everything I'm doing. I'm gonna take on c4. So what have we achieved? A couple of things, actually. By taking twice, now I get to exchange the light square bishops, first of all. Second of all, we've opened up the b file and the c file. And usually, because black is getting crushed in the king side, having the open c file and b file allows for counterplay. I'm gonna go queen d7. I'm gonna keep the tension. I don't want to take. Take only helps white to connect rooks. And let's see. Here they want f4, do they want knight f5? Not sure. I'm gonna play rook fc8, which is answering to knight f5. Anticipating. And look at this. Already here we get a kind of a reward, because queen d2, technically we could play bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and that would be a better version to, for example, doing it here. So you can immediately see the benefits of keeping the tension. But okay, I'm gonna calm down. Because I like talking about keeping the tension all the time. And it does get boring sometimes. Okay, queen d2, knight b5. Yeah, knight b5 is probably fine. I just don't like pinning my pieces. Like, knight takes c3 technically is not a threat. But okay, they break the tension. I guess rook takes c3 was the real threat. And knight takes c3 sometimes is a threat because we're taking on e4, so... yeah, this makes sense. They go rook b1, kind of forcing my hand. Now this is a threat. What should we do? Bishop c4, keeping the tension, or bishop takes d3, or a6, or rook a b8? I like rook a b8. Fighting for the b file, this rook is immediately much better on b8 than it was on a8. The only thing I have to watch out for is the a7 pawn, which I may have already blundered. Takes, bishop a7. Is that something to worry about? I think we would have had some counterplay, but I'm not sure if enough. Either way, moving on, we're not going to get that anymore. Rook b3 is getting ready to double in the b file, so I'm going to take on d3. Finally, we're breaking the tension. And once again, let's think here. I think I want queen a4, although I'm calculating rook a b1. And I'm just wondering if that's the way. I think I want to go queen a4, yeah. Keeping an eye on the weakness on e4. Yeah, that's a little bit annoying, but I think I can keep somehow the tension further with knight d7. Is that too much? Okay, I don't think so. I'm gonna take on b3. Sure, white. Okay, white takes with the a pawn. Rook takes b3 maybe. Or queen takes b3, but a takes b3, I'm not that. I'm pretty happy about this, actually. So queen b4 blunders the pawn again, but I do get some counterplay. Queen a5, queen a3. I'm gonna go queen a3. b4 is obviously not possible. I do stop attacking e4, which means that white can do knight f5. But like on the flip side, okay, I'm gonna go bishop f8. On the flip side, I was gonna say bishop d8, bishop b6 now that this queen is defending d6, but okay. Maybe not completely true. I'm gonna go g6. You can have that. They don't go for it. I'm gonna go back to e7. Or should I? I can go a6 as well. I like a6 actually. It's stopping bishop takes a7 for sure. And it's also preventing queen b5, which is a little bit of an annoying move. So we have things under control. We're preparing knight d7, knight c5. And ultimately we want this bishop over here as well. But we have 1 minute 30. Okay, waiting move. Waiting improving move, I should say. So now we're getting ready for knight c5. They go for this, but this is blundering. So we want a bishop. That's pretty good news. Now let's see. Obviously it's not the end of anything. So we have two ways of going. We can go super aggressive with bishop h6, bishop f4. And I think that's working. And we could have also played some like queen c7 and like, or maybe like, yeah, knight c5, queen c7 and gone very solid. But as I've been saying, like if you can kill the game right away, you should ideally do that. Now, yeah, this is a little bit of an annoying move. I'm gonna go queen f1. Because this is pinning. So essentially bishop f4 is a threat. But even after some like queen d c8 or queen c8 or queen takes d6, like even here, like there's bishop f4. Like how do you deal with this knight which is attacked? Okay, this I can play bishop f4 and essentially transpose or convert to a winning endgame. And I'm gonna keep all my structure intact. And sure, it does look a little bit scary that there's c5 stuff, but you can be my guest. Like c5, I simply take. And h5 is very important actually to prevent king g4. Yeah, that's the way. DE c5 is a little bit scarier. So you know what? We're going to keep things very easy for ourselves. We're going to play knight d7. Takes king g7. And there's nothing. Like c5, knight takes c5, obviously. And you know what? Once again, there's no relax here. King d4. Those pawns are not going anywhere. So this is the absolute easiest way. Making our lives as easy as possible. Okay, now I'm going to take. Too much is too much. And that is it. 20 seconds should be enough. Thank you for the game, Artur 1972, let's just say. Let's analyze that and probably call it a day, because that should make it to the top 10. Unless I take ages analyzing this, and by the time I finish, it's going to be old news. E5, D5, they go bit nibbies and tech not die. Thank you very much for subscribing. Yeah, so I've been playing C6 all this time. And the engine turns out to be saying, look, David, this is not the way. The engine likes knight BD7. And this is what grandmasters have been playing. Although C6 makes tons of sense in my mind, but okay. Knight BD7 seems to be the way to go, but C6, C4, I mean, it's similar to the King's Indian defense stuff that we've been playing. So it's kind of also pretty logical, pretty consistent with our general repertoire. Sorry if you guys experience some buffering. So we go for b5, and yeah, these are the dangerous positions. The Benoni is like very delicate, and already here we're slightly worse. Sorry, slightly worse is very optimistic. We're worse. Definitely worse. Close to losing. After d takes c6, d takes c6, b takes c4, bishop takes c4, and my plan was bishop e6. But white has this very strong move, bishop d5, which completely kills all my hopes for some sort of, you know, d5 or at least some sort of a counterplay. Oh, there's knight 64 and d5. I mean, it all comes down to this. Obviously, the King's Indian defense is itself also like plus 1.5 for white, or plus 1.2 or something like that. So, you know, we're humans. We're not going to play against someone. Hopefully, we're not going to play against someone, unless you're playing against Magnus or something, that is completely going to kill you out of the opening. So yeah. MJ, thank you. Yeah, this is my game. I'll check the Discord. So we didn't get this. b3 was played, and immediately black gets an absolutely fine position after b takes c4, b takes c4, c takes d5. All of these exchanges have opened files and diagonals. So now we find moves, annoying moves. Bishop a6 now. It turns out that knight d7 was better for some reason. But okay, bishop a6 looks very natural. Come on. Castle short side. And we kept the tension correctly. Now, once again, I mean, I'm playing horribly. Queen d7. Knight d7 seems to have been the way. Threatening bishop g5. Wow. So we're not only exchanging this light square bishop, but we're also exchanging the dark square bishop. And it makes sense, actually. This knight is heading to c5, but for the time being, bishop takes c5, d takes c5 is completely shattering. Goodness gracious, saying that killed my throat. Completely demolishing our structure. So by playing bishop g5 first and taking, now we're allowing our knight to land on c5 pretty comfortably. Now these moves were played. Knight b5 is wrong. I should have played g6. Yeah, I realized this late. Too late. Like g6 is very useful. Like just stopping knight f5. I just was scared of some f4 stuff, but it turns out I can take and play knight ce8. Which is not obvious. But the idea is that you're ready to blockade the freshly created passed pawn with the ideal knight on d6. So yeah. I should have played g6, but I went knight b5. Once again, like all of this is kind of very human, but the engine completely kills everyone. I should probably stop using that word for monetization reasons. But it completely parries, stops all of black's hopes for counterplay. But you know, the computer does that because it's hyper accurate. So that's my excuse. And after rook b3, finally, we're getting objectively a decent position. Once again, g6 would have been nice. Bishop d8, queen a4. Runs into rook a3. Wow, we didn't see this. Rook a3. Now a7 is falling. What if queen c4? Takes, and bishop a7. And no, rook takes a7. And that's hitting the bishop. That's pretty annoying. Yeah, we were in trouble. We were in deep trouble. So not an amazing game. If anything, we kind of did a good job at not keeping it that simple. But rook a3 is not that difficult to spot. You know, out of everything that we've talked about, I think rook a3 is pretty findable. But yeah, we got to this position. White is better, as long as they find accurate move like bishop g5, but bishop g5 was not found. And everything finally stabilizes yet again. And yeah, bishop c1 is terrible. With all due respect, my opponent can be, you know, you can be a good player and make mistakes, so it's fine. Bishop c1 is just a blunder. Knight e2 followed by bishop c1 maybe. Okay, well, sounds like the engine is sharper. Knight b7 also looking for a nice outpost. Yeah. We did it too late. We did g6 and knight d7 too late. I think I was pretty idealizing the position. I thought I had time. Was ambitious. I was trying to get counterplay, keep things under control here, I guess. Actually, I'm lying. I would be lying if I said that. I wanted counterplay in the queen side, but then after realizing I didn't, like, you know, it wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, I should have played g6, knight d7 earlier. Okay, well, let's take a look at this. Let's pause it quickly. Look at that, pretty nice. Number 8. You know, I mean, we could keep going, but I've been almost 2 hours here, and that's much more than I usually stream for. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully that was instructive to some extent. We did berserk every single game. I don't usually do that for the purposes of instructive, well-commentated games, but once in a while is okay. And yeah, hopefully you guys have a nice rest of your weekend. I'll be streaming tomorrow at the same time and probably be doing daily Rapid Arena. Although I'll be checking out what Roger told me about the title arenas, which is true. I would like to bring title arenas to the channel if possible, so I'll take a look at that. But enough of talking. Have a good day, and I'll see you around.